So yes, people, welcome back to another episode of the Ghostoul Podcast. It's been a week, and it's been a good week. Firstly, I'd like to thank everybody that's been watching the episodes over the weeks. All the comments, the views, brilliant. Thank you so much. And this week's episode is going to be very good. I have a lady on the show who literally spends her days down in hell. Yep, we have Willow from the Hellfire Caves.
Hello, everyone. I'm not using that as like my tagline. I love it.
Oh, it's good.
It's great. I love it.
So how are you?
I really appreciate it. I'm good. Very warm. I don't like this hot weather, but I mean, what do you expect? I literally live in an 8-degree cave, so I can't, but apart from that, really good. It's we were just chatting before. I've been doing some promotion and we've been doing lots of video shoots at work, which have been lots of fun, being covered in fake blood for like 8 hours on end, which is
nice.
But all part of it, so
yeah. So for those of the people listening or watching that don't know who you are, don't know what the Hellfire Caves are, if you could just give a little rundown of who you are, what you do there, and what the Hellfire Caves are.
The caves, very short version, was a man-dug cave system that was used in the Georgian era for a lot of raucous parties. Rumoured that orgies happened down there, sex, Satanism, and sacrifice is sort of the 3 S's that we like to put down to put down there. Your average 9-to-5 day job. Yeah. Can't complain. But yeah, I am sort of our events manager. I do all things paranormal, filming. We do kids' parties, which are Harry Potter themed, which is obviously completely left to what you would think that we would do. All kinds of fun stuff, which I get to do, and I get to work with incredible people like Miki as well, who I've met through working with my job, which is, incredible. So I can't complain.
That's good. So how long have you been there?
I think 3 years, or so. But I literally live sort of 2 minutes away from the cave, so I've been visiting my whole life, and I literally went to the primary school that is, I mean, if you've been there, it's
on the hill,
literally on the hill as you drive up to the cave. So we used to, do school trips there when it was too hot and stuff. So I've, been visiting my whole life. And after I finished A-levels, the manager at the time messaged me literally on Facebook Messenger and was like, "We need some more actors. Do you want a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great." And I've never looked back since, and I'm very glad I haven't. So that's kind of my story about working at the caves.
Oh, it's good. Like you said, you went to school on the literal hill of the lead up to the caves. What was that like growing up and going to school there? Were all your friends scared? Were you scared? It's like, oh my God, it's a scary cave. There's ghosts in there.
So the fun thing is I actually never went all the way down the caves until I started working there, and I was forced to. Because little Willow...
Go!
When you first work there, what we do is a cave check we have to do at the morning to make sure, all the sound and the lights are working. And then at night to, clean up any litter that's been left down, and also to make sure we don't lock people in, which I definitely haven't ever done before. And I'm going to leave that literally, lights off, and I'm like,
help!
Sorry. We do have CCTV down there, but sometimes we have blind spots, and sometimes you just miss people. Sometimes it's a really warm day in a cave, and you just, Anyway, but yeah, I actually never went down. We do this cave check, and on my first week, they're like, "Okay, well, you're doing cave check," and I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, go, bye, have fun," and I'm like, "Okay." And I was terrified the whole time. But yeah, growing up, you sort of take it for granted because you do, you pop to the cafe, after school and whatnot. And I knew a lot of the people working there as well growing up, so you do kind of take it for granted. And it's one thing I always say nowadays, especially, is you kind of forget how, I mean, it's obviously incredible a location, but you forget just how incredible it is that literally a 5-minute walk down the road and you have a man-dug cave system that you can go and just walk around. And it's something that, because you go there so often, it's almost the magic sometimes gets taken away, which is something that's quite disappointing in a way, but because you just forget it because you're so used to just going, every day and making lattes in the cafe and stuff. But yeah, growing up, I definitely remember there was that split. There was the kids that was terrified, which I was one of those, and then the kids that were like, yeah, let's go and run around and find all the ghosts and stuff. And it's like, okay. But we had my leavers party for when we left year 6. We had there. You could only go through to the banqueting hall, which for those of you who don't know, who's like the sort of middle point, which is massive room. It's like 60 foot in the air, about 40 foot across, including the tunnel that goes around the back. It's massive. We had this DJ in there, like all the lights flashing and stuff, and your average year 6 leavers party.
Sounds great.
It was. I mean, from what I can remember, because again, I was like going up and down, and I got too scared. And then I saw Kevin, my mum, bless her, was chatting to the staff and was like, "Oh, can I put all my cakes and stuff in the fridge and whatnot?" And I just kind of stayed up and just chatted to Jack, who actually I then went on to work with when I joined the Caves. So it was that kind of full circle moment. And he has absolutely loved me and taught me everything I know about the Caves as well. So I've got a lot to shout him out for. And yeah, that was kind of what it was. And you always, you just stop off in the cafe. You don't always have to go down the Caves. And it was that sort of just like cool thing. And you just forget how, as I said, how cool it is. And you get people that come in and go, oh, I went here when I was a kid and haven't been here for 60 odd years. So it's nice to know it's not just me. It's some people that do forget about it. And then they come up and go, it's a lot bigger than you remember, or a lot cooler and stuff like that, it's really magical. Well, I'm very lucky. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I've been before I actually started doing ghost hunting there. I think I've been down a few times in the daytime with my kids, and they were probably under 10, 8, 7, that sort of age. And they were used to my weirdness and all the crazy stuff I get up to. But they loved going down there. And, quite often if you go in the daytime, it's quite quiet. So you get time on your own in there. And like definitely sections that are quiet. With like there's people up in the other side, the entrance and that at the top. And definitely down near the inner temple, around that area, it's definitely different. The last time I went, it's definitely different. Yeah, the last ghost hunt I did down there, we actually had access to the inner temple. It was actually open, which all the other years I've been there, it's never been open.
I think we restored it, or the royal we had a company come in and did it I want to say about 2 years ago. So it was such a big thing. So obviously it had not been open for like 60 odd years, and we used to just like have the sort of door and then all the mannequins in there.
Yeah.
And so it's still something so cool when people come in and go, that wasn't open before, and we're like, we know, and it's so cool. Glad that you've got to investigate it as well.
Is that open in the daytime as well, or just
completely?
Wow.
So when the beginning of this year, we had a lot of torrential rain in Wickham, and we actually had to shut it because the inner temple, the depth that it's at, sort of about 300 feet underneath the top of the hill, it's at sort of the natural water table. So when we had all this torrential rain, it actually flooded. So the inner temple was about, I think, 6 to 10 inches in water, and it was like we obviously had to lock it just for health and safety. But apart from that, which we're lucky, fingers crossed, it hasn't flooded again. But yeah, it's literally open to the public. Apart from we have certain little alcoves and stuff that are locked off that have little artifacts or mannequins and stuff. But literally every tunnel that we have access to, that we know of, that the public has access to.
Oh wow!
There's no secret hidden ones. I wish that I could say that. Oh yeah, there's a few tunnels that we just lock off, but no, public has access to what we have access to.
So you mentioned certain areas that are locked off, like behind, and you've got artifacts in there. That urn, is that the original urn?
As far as we're aware, there was great debate at the beginning of this year, but from what we have put hours and hours into research of, it is, as far as we're aware, the actual one.
Whose urn is that?
So Paul Whitehead, he was the secretary of the club. He was a very sort of famous poet at the time.
Yeah.
And he was Sir Francis Dashwood, who was the guy who actually sort of commissioned the caves to be dug out. He was his right-hand man. They were really good friends. Some people believe more than friends, because there were a lot of raunchy letters between them that I think you can still read.
Really?
I think it's the Oxford Archives, I think.
Yeah.
There's something I always say, I think it's that, and then I always forget to research it. But and then also sort of the like inscription sort of like drawing that's on like actually carved into the front of the urn. It does look kind of like two men sort of embracing each other and maybe doing other bits and bobs. So we leave that up to great debate. But it's very, very likely. I mean, the motto of the club sort of translates to like "do what thou wilt" or "do what you want." And we always say, just for dramatic on our tours, that the Hellfire Club most definitely did do who and what they wanted. So it wouldn't go as far to, believe it. But so yeah, they sort of liked drinking, partying, women, maybe men as well. And they just really got on well. So much so that Dashwood sort of made him his secretary. And he used to sit in that alcove and sign people into the meetings, sort of to, make sure everyone who was invited was in attendance.
Yeah.
And he also used to like, keep inventory of all like the food and the drink that would come in and stuff. And it's again sort of something to believe that, if he was taking down so meticulously, the name and address and occupation of all these people that were in attendance, was it that perhaps if they went talking that they could shut them up quickly? It was that. There's a lot of hearsay about this group. And when Paul White had died in 1774, he left two things to Sir Francis. He left £50 for the deposit for a marble urn and his heart. Nothing else, just the organ, his heart. And it was placed in the urn, and then there was actually this huge like funeral march procession that was done around West Wickham that went, I think, 3 times around the lake in the estate. And then, you carted, literally on like dramatic horse and cart, pulled this urn up and placed it in the mausoleum. And it's not even just in like, because there's a lot of the family members have these like massive plinths sort of around the floor of the mausoleum, and then there's smaller ones that are like sort of on the ceiling, and some that are actually like on the top of it.
Yeah.
But his is actually on one of these bottom plinths and has this sort of really ornate sort of like structure that it's sat upon with like inscriptions on it. And then eventually we know that the Georgians were really weird people, and when after the club sort of dissipated, they actually exhumed the heart or the urn from the mausoleum and decided that, what would be really cool was if for a few pennies people paid and you could feel the heart.
Oh.
They were weird. And it was said to be in 1829, sort of the size and looked like a lump of charcoal. So, yeah, gross.
Yuck.
So, yeah, and in 1829, I think it was, that it was stolen and never to be seen again. A lot of people believe, and I think it's most commonly believed as well, it was an Australian soldier that stole it, but that's as far as we know. So yeah, it is the actual urn that we've literally like measured. There's like old sort of videos and documentaries and stuff, and we've like tried to compare like the breakage in it and stuff like that, and like try to measure all like the detailing and stuff. But yeah, as far as we're aware, it is like pretty much guaranteed to be real. So that's pretty cool.
That's crazy. And the fact that you've actually still got that.
Yeah, it's very damaged, but
I can imagine. It's very old though.
Yeah, it's what, 250 odd
old.
years, I think. I'm not doing maths. I can't do that in my head. But yeah, it's sort of our only original piece that we still have in the caves, which we're very lucky. And obviously, £50 in the 1700s is what, probably like, I think last time I checked, about 8 to 10 grand now. So obviously it's priceless, but monetary value for this sort of deposit for this marble urn that he left, it's a lot of money. So we are very protective over it, as you can imagine.
So do you know the history of when the caves became public, like when they were open to visitors? Do you know anything about that?
So I believe, I can't remember the exact year it was, but it was sort of in the 1950s, 1960s. And there's actually quite a funny story behind sort of the journey in them becoming public. So you have Sir Edward, who's the current baronet. He is our boss, Sir Edward Dashwood. He is the 12th baronet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Still in the family. Oh, that's quality.
Yeah, he's so hands-on. He always comes, checks in, we're okay, grabs a Magnum and goes. But he's genuinely such a lovely bloke. And they still live in the manor house as well. That's literally, my house backs onto the estate, so he's over there somewhere. But they're still in the family, and his daughter Victoria is our managing director as well. So it's so nice that it is still in the family after so many years.
Wow.
And his dad, Sir Francis, there's so many Francises, Sir Francis the 11th, he was the one who actually sort of made it all, open and safe to the public. And he bought it off his dad, Sir John, who was the 10th Baronet, which are the three sort of important ones. And Sir John said, and I quote, "It was a damned silly idea to open these caves to the public." So he sold them to his son for one singular Great British pound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then Sir Francis, bless him, did all of this work to, make the cave safe to the public. Obviously, there's, mesh metal grating that's put in, wooden beams. There's a lot of the walls have been, re-bricked and replastered. So there's not a lot of original walling that you can actually see. There is, some, obviously you're talking like a quarter of a mile of cave. But, and there was also massive, steel rods that have been put into the hill to, keep it safe, which is, incredible. And we're very lucky. And it's still, checked every 6 months, to make sure it's safe. We've not had any collapse for over 75 years.
Oh, wow.
Saying that now. But yeah, we're very lucky. And he also, because the ceiling in the banqueting hall actually kept collapsing because, they didn't, they just dug it out. They didn't do anything to, keep it safe. So he actually had to dig the tunnel round the back of the banqueting hall. They actually used dynamite to explode it among, pickaxes and like that. So instead of them having to, get all the chalk out and, flesh the ceiling again so they could get to the bottom, they just went, "We'll deal with that later. Let's dig a tunnel around the back." So just in case this happens again. Yeah. I've not got it on me actually, but there was, I believe, someone came into the cafe and I think it was his great uncle that helped dig this relief tunnel. And he actually gave me a copy of the payment certificate they got. And it was, I think, £250 that they got given by Sir Francis, who did help dig out this back tunnel. And yeah, he signed it all and everything and made it all really fancy. So yeah, and that was sort of in the 60s. And I think you could pay a couple of shillings and, go pick up the key from the guy opposite and he'd give you the keys and a candle and you'd, walk around. And we get so many stories of people coming in that, they say they literally would go around and they'd blow the candles out and run around in the dark and stuff. It's really lovely when we get people that, did come in, 60, 70 years ago and that come in and tell their stories. And you've been here, we chat a lot and we love to hear everyone's experiences and stories and stuff. So that's what it was. And then there literally used to be just a little shack outside which would sell little ice creams and drinks and stuff. And then eventually the cafe was sort of built in the 90s and we've sort of, pretty much been there ever since. And, now we're, quite a fleshed out cafe doing ice creams, teas, coffees, all that stuff, and a small lunch menu as well. So that's sort of very brief story of how it opened up to the public. Oh
yeah, I can also say the shop is very good. Some very, very good quality. I spent a lot of money in that shop. So Ouija boards, glass balls, crystal balls and all that. Yeah, loads. My kids
looking around my room and it's so much stuff. It's so
yeah. The reason I asked actually about when it was opened, was there anything left in there? Because obviously you've got the urn. Was there anything at all from the previous tenants, as it were?
So not as we know, but we do know that when, I believe it was they were digging the tunnel round the back, they did actually find a load of coins that were hidden in the wall, which was something, either we probably believe that when they were originally digging out the caves that they, probably just put it in the wall for, someone maybe to eventually find in the future. Yeah. Whether or not there was, more stuff hidden, we'd love to know. I'd love to take a metal detector down there.
Oh yeah,
it would be amazing. But obviously, with the nature of chalk as well, it's such a fragile rock. And my geography A level is hating me because I can't remember any of the fancy words. It's such a fragile rock. You literally can break it apart in your hands. So unfortunately, as well, the rumor that there are loads of other tunnels and stuff. As far as we're aware, as I said, the only tunnels that, you can have access to are the ones that we know about as well. There's no after dark secret tunnels or whatnot. And we still do get emails to this day going, "Can we have special access to the tunnel that's from the church to the caves?" And we go, "It doesn't exist." And they're like, "What? No, there is." And we're like, "No, as far as we're aware, no, it isn't." And growing up in the village as well, you hear so many stories of, Sir Francis, he used to have this tunnel that he would go, underneath the village so he wouldn't get seen, or, there are tunnels from there to like Hewingdon Manor and stuff. But again, and I know people that work at Hewingdon Manor and they can definitely say there's nothing. So we don't know, unfortunately.
Yeah. Who else was rumored to be there? Was it Benjamin Franklin? He was one of the...
He is one of my favorite people to talk about, because when we get Americans in, and they think he's obviously if you don't know, he's one of the founding fathers of America. Wasn't president, which many people believe, but they are like, oh my god, Benjamin Franklin, and I go, yeah, he was actually a horrible person.
No.
Yeah, fun fact, he has one of my favorite quotes of all time. And shortened down, it's, you should always choose an older woman because they appreciate the attention more. And in the dark, all cats are grey. So,
wow.
He was also said to put a bag over a woman's head during sexual intercourse because he didn't want to look at them. So yeah, he was actually not a very nice man. We don't know if he was actually a member of the club. We know that he visited a lot because he was the ambassador for the UK at the time. Because obviously this was sort of just before the American Revolution, so lots and lots of stuff going on. And again, Sir Francis and his family, the Dashwood family, actually got their money from being in, they were in the trade. They were, I believe, their most prominent thing was silk trade, which was obviously a big money earner back in the day. And then he got friendly with Benjamin Franklin. So many people have stayed there over the years. Even the late Queen Elizabeth II and her sister did visit and stay at the estate when they were kids, which is very cool. There's pictures at the estate of it, and I love seeing them every time I go. And Benjamin Franklin did say that Dashwood's assets were as gorgeous above as they were below. So, again, it's one of those things that we can't confirm or deny, but let's be realistic here. So, I mean, there were so many, members of the club that, say Benjamin Franklin is, the most notable. But William Hogarth, who was also a very famous painter and architect at the time, he was a member of the club, and he was the guy who actually carved all the faces into the walls that you see around the caves. Dashwood commissioned him to come in and carve all of the faces of the members of the club into the walls, which is very interesting when you find out the face of the devil's carved into the walls down there as well.
So just to stop you, I was going to ask about that. All the little like horror faces and that, they're not recent then?
They are original.
Because I always thought they were like put there recently, or last 10 years or so, just for like Halloween, and they were actually original.
Yeah. So the one, again, I don't know if you remember, sort of as you're coming down, you have the urn sort of bit there.
On the right, yeah,
and there's the face with the big triangle hat as well. I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, but that's sort of there as you go around the circle. That was actually meant to represent Sir Francis Dashwood himself, because he at the meetings, men used to dress as monks, women used to dress as nuns, and Dashwood would dress as the Pope. So,
nice,
it's a pointy hat.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get what these people were into at those times as well, but it's
forbidden stuff.
There's like faces with like upside down crucifixes on them. There's one that we believe to be the Earl of Sandwich, John Montague, who was also a member of the club, as he was often depicted wearing like a big sort of illustrious like turban sort of headwear. And there's one that you can see that has, his face, and then it looks like this sort of head, very ornate headdress, and then like there's horns on top of it as well. So again, sort of with a lot of this sort of demonic or maybe satanic, symbolism going on there. Well. But yeah, original, which is really, really cool. I think I've counted about 45 to 47, I think was the last count I did. And I can't remember if I counted the same one a couple of times.
Wow. I've not seen that many. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot. Some of them are like smaller, some of them are bigger. And it's you can tell which ones have been done recently and which ones haven't. Because obviously, we are open to the public. We do, unfortunately, get a lot of graffiti and vandalism down there as well, which is something that you'd like to think, you wouldn't go and touch the Mona Lisa, but you would carve your name into a wall of a cave. But, and it's quite sad when you go, that one's new. You go, yeah, you spend too much time down here when you can tell which is new. But yeah, I think, 45 to 47, which is very impressive. William Hogarth is one that sometimes shocks people as well. John Wilkes, who was also a member of Parliament, He was a very important member of the club. Thomas Potter, he was a poet at the time. It was people like the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury was a member of the club. Frederick, who was the Prince of Wales, the King's son, was a member of the club, and sort of that's how one of the reasons that it got found out, because the message got to King George, one of the King George's time, sort of, that this club was going on. So it's a lot of very important people doing things that they wouldn't do in the public eye necessarily. Because you think in the Georgian era, it's all about appearance. That was the era of a lot of like big, very colourful costumes, even sort of to extent they had obviously like the big sort of wigs that they'd tie back and sort of have all the ponytails, and women would be in like the big, very poofy dresses sort of thing. So it was all about appearance and having a lot. It was assets was such a big thing. So there was, I believe, actually a craze of in England of people digging sort of caves and or making these illustrious sculptures. You think like the Dashwood estate, they have all these like little temples and little properties, and then they have like the statue of Venus and stuff like that on the estate, which is a lot of, again, very symbolic. But these people sort of have all their illustrious parliament jobs and and perhaps even royal duties, but then they have this sort of secret club that they can go to and sort of have their darker fantasies acted out, basically.
I suppose they wouldn't be caught then, would they, in theory?
Again, that's sort of one of the reasons that they moved to the caves, because originally sort of club history, the club originated in the early 1730s, and I believe they called it the Divante, something like that club. And that was again by sort of Sir Francis, and I can't remember the other guy's name because there are so many men to remember. And they actually sort of started this club in the basement of a pub in London. And it was more of a club for the fine arts. Again, a lot of these men were poets, musicians, of art at the time as well. And they would just gather and, apparently just discuss that these finer things and what they were enjoying at the time. And then eventually Sir Francis bought Medmedan Abbey, and he restored that and sort of moved his meetings there, which he imported a gondola from Venice so they could cross the, the sort of river there and whatnot. They were very weird people. He restored that because when he did, the abbey was in ruins. And unfortunately, the abbey doesn't exist to this day, but it is sort of a big, fancy house now, which is, I have been past. I've not been in, but I have been past, which is very cool. And then eventually in 1755, they moved sort of their meetings into the caves. And it was said that they would have these two big meetings, which they would call full chapters, twice a year. And that was where they would, invite all of the members. They had sort of these superior and inferior members of the club, as they called themselves. So the superior members were said to be about 40 to 50, which again sort of just does tie in that sort of number of faces that I've found carved into the walls, being sort of 45 to 47. Then you do have the brothers of the club, which they called themselves, because the club was never actually called the Hellfire Club ever in history until recently when it was given the name. The club was the Brothers of Sir Francis of Wickham, or the Friars of Sir Francis. Again, religious symbolism sort of thing. So yeah, they were never actually called that, which is a fun fact. Which people go, what? And I'm like, yeah. But hey,
we made this name.
It's quite funny. We when Stranger Things season 4 came out, and obviously they the uprise of the very famous Hellfire Club, and Eddie Munson went mental.
Yes, yeah.
And we had people coming in literally go, so what does it have to do with Stranger Things? And we go, absolutely nothing. They just use the name because it's public domain. And they're like, what? And we're like, yeah, it's not real. The club was never called it. And people left very disappointed, unfortunately, that Eddie Munson wasn't wandering around the halls. But, hey ho, sorry.
Oh, wow.
You get kids coming in that go, oh, was it D&D down there? And we're like, no, 7-year-old, and I'm not going to tell you unless your parents want to go home and explain what an orgy is to you, which I'm not for. But, we let people do that. Viewer discretion is advised. And, we sort of, these club was so weird. They had inferior, superior, and then the brothers, sort of the elite sort of members. And it was even sort of when you go past the banqueting hall, which again, the big room in the caves.
The drips.
All of the drips.
It's like raining.
And fun fact, which I love to tell people, is when you go in the banqueting hall, it's sort of just left of the church. So if you get dripped on, it's body juice from the graveyard.
Oh, I've experienced body juice.
Yes, and because people go, wow, it's so cool. And I'm like, you might want to close your mouth.
Yeah, nice.
And then people go, ew, no. And I'm like, sorry. Nutrition, I guess, but, you know, whatever. And these 12 brothers were allowed past the banqueting hall, sort of to the lower parts of the cave, which is, again, sort of, they had all this symbolism. And then, you cross the river Styx to the inner temple, which was so... again, so symbolic, which was very fancy and I love. And it was very important for them to be these sort of like stately guys, but, they had the darker... So I always sort of say it's kind of like a Georgian lockdown party sort of vibe. That, it was all these, very important things they didn't do in the public eye, which is just fascinating.
Yeah. But, they felt free to do them down there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, again, sort of them acting on, I guess, natural instinct and urges. And in the banqueting hall, the 4 alcoves that have now got statues of Greek and Roman gods in there, which is, again, nothing original. But they used to actually have curtains drawn across them and beds inside them.
I can imagine.
The notches that you see sort of on, so you have like the bases of them and then like the doors sort of set back. You have these notches, and all of these notches were actually said to be tally marks, and it was them sort of marking how many people they, quote, took to bed in these alcoves. So, again, it's a lot of symbolism.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. Learning things. I know too much about this place.
That's good, because it means you're doing your job, because you have to know more than we do.
It's when you sort of realize there's so many different little things, and it's some people want to know about the Dashwood family, so you've got to learn all that. Some people actually want to know about cave and stuff, and it's like, okay, cave, I can do that. And then you're learning all the little bits about the club and all the symbolism, and you do you do have to learn sort of the boundaries as well. Sort of people just go, oh, they were Satanists, but it's like, no, because then that sort of paints it in a bad light as well, because it's Satanism isn't all about worshipping and summoning the devil and all this and that. So it's a lot of things you do have to take into account and you do have to learn, which is very fun. But then all is in your brain is cave knowledge. And it's quite funny. It's if you ever come in the daytime, there's like this audio track that plays, and the entrance door has this like really weird sort of almost medieval tune, and then it goes into the information. And when I promise you that all of the staff can recite those audio tracks over and over again, and I do a lot of performing arts, and when we get to a point, it's like, oh, Willow, can you test your mic? And it's say something, and I'm like, and then I just go and start talking the audios from work, because it's just default. But we're very lucky that even people they come in and they share stories with us, and we learn different things, and it's not just all about general history, it's not just all about paranormal, it's so many different areas to learn about, which we're very lucky.
That's really good. So why is there a river down there? It's not real. The river Styx is not real, is it?
No, so the river Styx is, I believe, from Greek mythology, and it sort of symbolizes the sort of marker between heaven and hell. Not heaven and hell, sorry. Like the living and hell. And you used to, I believe it's like you would pay the ferryman and then he would let you into the underworld. So again, it's that kind of like you have to cross the river Styx to get into the inner temple, and it's kind of like you're leaving all of your sort of living essence behind, and you're stepping in to a pure evil, like demonic sort of location essentially. And again, they used to have like stepping stones there. And so again, as you said, it's not like a real river, but when they dug to that point of the caves, they did actually find sort of a natural water spring, because I said it's sort of down at sort of the water table level. We're talking like 300 feet underground. So they did sort of find this water table, and then they sort of just accentuated it into this kind of like S shape, which just curves around the river. And I do have to admit, the stalagmites and stalactites are fake. They're not real. Completely fake. They're made out of like fiberglass, rolled up newspaper, spray foam.
Don't tell everybody.
It does say in the entrance tunnel on a sign there. So I'm like, do you read the information? And if I'm telling you this, like, no, like there you go. And you can actually, excuse me, you can see like the grates that they're all cable tied to, which is quite fun as well.
Yeah. So it's definitely when you go down and it's all dark and you've got all this glowing red and blue and that.
Yeah,
it looks quality. I love it.
It's quite an ambience we try and set down there. I mean, obviously in the day you think it would have been pitch black, and even, you know, if you come in investigations, you know, you literally cannot see your hand in front of your face.
You can't.
It really does sort of put your senses out, and with the echo as well, because it's all gravel underfoot, and it really does sort of, it's quite an out of body experience, sort of, if you're down there, especially if you're doing an investigation and you just, you know, ask a question, then it's just silent and all you can hear is the drips, or maybe very occasionally like distant footsteps, and it is terrifying. Even, you know, for some people who work there, you do catch yourself, you know, if I'm wearing the wrong trousers and my trousers are brushing up against each other, I'm like, who the hell is behind me? It's you never get used to it. It's, you know, quite scary, but and it is the natural human instinct. You know, you're underground, you're like 5 minutes from the surface, and, you know, people can't hear you scream once you go past. I mean, apart from me, who has an 120 decibel scream, then, you know, hidden talent. But if once you go around that sort of first corner and go down past the urn, you can't hear people. If you scream at the top of your lungs, you cannot hear. People can't hear you from the surface. So it is that like natural fight or flight instinct, you know, around if lights are off, especially. And, you know, it's quite damp as well, so it sits heavy on your chest.
Yeah.
It naturally, sometimes, again, we do have people that it just panic them and we have to get them out, which again is just natural human instinct, which is something that was really interesting to see how different people do react to it. Because some people are completely fine. It's not exactly, you know, it's not something you have to crawl down. It is quite, you know, spacious. I mean, for me, I'm only 5'2", so I'm never hitting my head on any of the ceilings at all. And, you know, they are quite wide, but there are only certain points that you can't pass each other, but it's, you know, not many.
It's normally okay, isn't it?
Yeah. And I normally class myself as quite claustrophobic. So it's, you know, it's fine for me, but it is really interesting to see how people do react. And some people are just, or even if, you know, some people are fine during the day, but in the night when the lights are off, they freak out, or even vice versa. Some people, because when they can see it, it freaks them out. And it's really interesting.
Have you ever been to Dublin?
I haven't, no, not to the Hellfire.
Have you? I was going to say, have you been to your sister location?
I wish I could. And so many people do. Sort of, we've had like YouTubers come in and they've done us, and then they say, "Oh, we're going to Dublin tomorrow," and it's like, "Can I come with you?" It's quite exciting. So we actually have some people filming with us this weekend who are coming back. I can talk about it. Amy's Crypt, who filmed with us.
I watched them.
They were actually my first ever YouTube video I filmed at the caves, and now they're coming back this weekend. So we're very, very excited. And we've been like texting each other all week, like, I can't wait to see you and stuff like that. And so it's really, really exciting. And they recorded with us a couple years ago, and then they've done Dublin. So now they're coming back to us. So it's really exciting. I can't wait to get the stories from there.
I've done the Hellfire Club twice in Dublin. Scariest place I've ever been to.
Really?
Oh, because it's on top of Montpellier Hill, and you have to walk 30 minutes through the forest from the car park to get there. At night time, like, it's public. Anyone can walk up there if you're stupid enough. And the first time we were there was only two of us, and we went out, because if you look from the building out on the hill, you can see Dublin all lit up. It's absolutely amazing. So all the little lights from the houses, the cars, etc. So we walked out because we didn't want to go straight in, because obviously you don't know who's in there. It's pitch black. It's like 11 o'clock at night. So we walked maybe 50, 100 yards away from the building and turned round to face it. And we're looking at it, and obviously it's all stonework. There's no doors or windows, but you've got the holes where they would have been. And they are sort of outlined in black. And then you've got the dark sky behind. I was shitting myself. And it was like evil was looking at me. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it was. I suppose it was the anticipation. Like, I'm going to go in there. Is there someone in there? What's going to be there? Because obviously everyone says that the devil's actually been there. That's documented. He was playing cards, etc. And it's like, whoa. But that could be your emotions taking over.
That's something I like to say at work as well, because, you know, you do have people, again, it's sort of that, like I said, sort of with my trousers brushing together, it's that kind of, you know, you are so on edge, you're like, you know, is it your mind playing tricks on you? Are you seeing things? But it's when you see something like that, it's that fight or flight. You're just like, holy shit. Like, even when you look at like the caves sort of all lit up, that entrance is like,
that's awesome,
menacing. It's
yeah.
But yeah, I completely get what you mean of like looking somewhere and going, nah, I'm all right. I'm good. Bye. So that's, yeah, it's incredible. I'd love to go there. It's definitely on my bucket list. But
you should do.
Hopefully one day. So
yeah. So you mentioned Amy's Crypt. Have you had any other YouTube famous TV shows, people there?
We have, oh god, a list of things.
That you've actually worked with?
I have had, the most notable is I've worked with Sam and Colby. And they sort of they were my opening eye to sort of the world of doing like influencing. And it's not that I do it, like, you know, it's not something I lick to, but they've sort of, since I've worked with them, you know, I've done a lot more stuff, and I'm very thankful to them. And might I say, they are genuinely some of the nicest blokes I have ever worked with. You're always, I mean, any place, any tourist attraction I've worked with or been to, or just know people that work there, you are always very dubious when you get big content creators come in, because you're like, you never know what they're going to be like. And I said this to the guys themselves. I was like, you know, you're kind of like, oh, they aren't they? And I was freaking out. I'm like, I have watched these guys for 10 years. I would literally, when I saw the email, I was like, we need to get them in. And everyone's like, why? And I'm like, just please. And yeah, literally there's videos that I've got on my phone of like them all recording outside, and I'm sat at the back with my colleague going, I'm freaking out, I can't do it. I'm like, cool, calm, collected, and I think I did a good job in the video of trying to not look like I'm freaking out, but I can assure you I was literally like this the whole entire night. And that video, I'm so glad it's documented, because that night is genuinely the worst night I have ever had at the caves experience-wise. That is the first time I've ever had to remove myself from an investigation anywhere, because I genuinely thought I was going to be sick. And I was like, I know they'd keep it in the video for content, and I respect that. I don't want myself throwing up on the internet.
Yay!
So I literally, it was in the banqueting room, and I literally had to walk out of frame, and like Sam come and find me. He's like, are you all right? And I'm like, oh. But they did keep me in crying my eyes out, which was great. Thanks, guys. Not that I mind, but it was genuinely awful. And to this day, nothing compares to it. It was just, it was one of, I mean, you always get those I call them like golden nugget investigations, when everything seems to be happening, every piece of equipment's working, you know, people are seeing things, people are getting touched or whatever. You have those really special investigations, and that, it was just like nothing I've ever seen before. And I'm still quite skeptic, me. I'm like, if it slaps me in the face, I'll believe it. But then it's things like that, and I'm like, I just can't explain it. And that they were absolutely lovely. They to work with. I've also worked with Tom Horton, who's a comedian, a stand-up comedian. Very funny, I will say. I'm not just trying to stroke his ego. He was lovely. I recorded a in-person podcast with him for his podcast Bad Manners, which was all about, again, like manor houses and that sort of like stately homes and all like their secrets and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a good name.
It was, I know, I was kind of, he went Bad Manners, and I went, oh, it took me a second. I get it. And that was really fun, but we did make the mistake of, so we were like recording live, and we walked up the hill to the mausoleum while still recording, and then at the end we're like, we're just going to take 5 minutes because we were so out of breath, so that was quite fun. But like other like stuff I've done, I mean, I worked on Beetlejuice 2 last year at work.
Fuck off! No way.
That was so cool. Yeah.
Wow, what, they filmed at the caves?
They filmed at the caves, and they were on the estate for 3 weeks filming. So you know, in the trailer, you know the scene where all the choir boys are singing Deo and they have the funeral of the dad? That's filmed actually behind my house. In the field behind my house, that was filmed in.
Wow. So what, did they use the caves as well?
So they were planning on using the banqueting hall and then the courtyard as well, and the surface.
Yeah.
And they like made it all kind of like almost like we were being used like for like Transylvania, like the Transylvanian castle.
Yeah.
So they like changed like all like information signs. They had a big Iron Maiden in the courtyard, which I was like, can I touch it, please? And they're like, yes. I was like, I was literally every like little goth girl's dream. It was amazing, and the crew were lovely as well.
Yeah.
And then they had on the day they had sort of this guy. I don't know if he's like one of the mains, but he was all like dressed up as Dracula, and there was almost like it was an open tourist attraction. And Tim Burton was literally coming in, like using all of our merch in the shop. And he's like, "Can I use all this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was literally, genuinely, again, absolutely lovely bloke. Only bloke that was in skinny black jeans and a leather jacket in the middle of July, though, last year. So, it's Tim Burton, what do you expect? But he was lovely, and that was definitely a kind of a pinch me moment for me of, like, what the fuck is going on? And the shot was Winona Ryder and Jenna Ortega, who obviously play Lydia Dietz and like her daughter in the film.
Yeah.
The second one, like walking from the entrance to like the middle of the courtyard, and Tim Burton actually vetoed filming in the banqueting hall because he didn't like it. Just wasn't, it's Tim Burton. He has a very specific vision, and you're not gonna, no qualms to his decision. But yeah, they did shoot in the courtyard, which again we're hoping is still in the film.
That is crazy. I was going to say, was there any of the main characters there?
Yeah, so they originally were going to use the cafe as like cast holding, but they didn't in the end because they were actually only with us like shooting for like less than an hour, I think about 45 minutes, because they didn't shoot in the banqueting hall. But yeah, so we do have like a little videos of like filming the cameras of Winona and Jenna walking from like the
wow, that's crazy. That is.
Yeah, and obviously on the estate they did have all of them, which was fun. Which, our land agent likes to tell us lots of stories about that. And he was sending us, because he actually still had to monitor it. So he was sat on a hill, like 5 minutes away, watching the action happen and stuff. But yeah, that's probably like the coolest thing that I worked on.
You see, the thing is that you're going to get that because of your location. And that's just like, oh, wow. Yeah, we've got like Batman and Beetlejuice turning up today. It's like, what?
Yeah, what we had at this, we've had a lot of smaller stuff. We've had Johnny Vegas, his series, which it's literally, I've mentioned it, it's gone out my head. But I believe it's going to be either this year or next year's like Christmas special of his show. I can't remember what it's called, but he was again absolutely lovely. And we had the new BBC series of Great Expectations film with us. That was my first ever like big filming I had, and that was big. That was like 400 crew. That was mental. But that was again sort of a pinch me moment. As Finn Whitehead, who he's been in like Dunkirk and stuff, and again I was like, oh my god, like hi, here's your hot chocolate. I hope you like it. And that was really cool. Midsummer Murders we've had here. I again like trying to rattle off the things I've worked on. I can see them in my head, but I cannot remember the name of them.
Too many.
Yeah, it's such a cool location. It is an absolute ball ache logistically. When people go, can we get 400 crew down there? And you go, absolutely not. Like, because it's, people think cave, they think, like Wookiee Hole and Cheddar,
Yeah, big, massive open spaces.
Open cave, and it's like, no, it's, it's man dug. It's a lot more winding tunnels than it is like big open cave. But, we get there, obviously there's all measures in place to make it safe for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, and people go, can we get flambeaus down there? And we go, you want to set a fire in a closed cave with no airflow?
No.
Oh.
Good idea.
Before I worked there, they did have Cruella for the new like Disney live action film that I think was 2019. That filmed there.
I love that film. That's brilliant.
It is. I'm not even joking you. It's like a 2-second shot.
I was going to say, I don't remember the caves.
It is before the part. I think it's like one of like the big dinner parties, and like one of the henchmen's going underground to try and like faff with stuff, and he's seen like opening a lock. That lock that he opens is the Franklin's alcove lock.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
But it's in there. Which is, again, a really cool one. But again, a lot of that film that was used on the estate, when I can't remember the character name, but Emma Thompson's character, when she's getting ready for like the parties and Mark Strong, it's get ready. That shot is all in the manor house. Most of a lot of that film is filmed in there, and the scene where it's revealed that Emma Thompson, her character's the mum, the scene of her like giving birth is in the music room on the estate as well. So it's really cool. A lot of that film was shot in the caves, not in the caves, in the manor house as well. So that's really cool.
What a cool place to live.
Yeah,
and work.
Literally, I'm so lucky that, some days you're making lattes, other days you're doing paranormal investigations, some days you're on a film set, and it's like, an average day at work. It's, 2 days are never the same, and I'm very, very lucky that it's literally 5 minutes away from me. So
That's brilliant. I mean, I thought digging graves was cool, but you beat me.
When we went to Gainsborough the other week, I was just like, what? I was like, that was so cool. It's fun when you work in, alternative jobs. You get so many different stories, and it's just like, it's like no 2 days are ever the same.
No. Cool. So when you said you were working with Sam Colby and Amy's Crypt, did you just do the tour for them, or were you there throughout the night on the investigation?
So with Amy's Crypt, I sort of did more of like just a tour and an interview, as like I was, that was sort of before I really got into the paranormal world as well. So it'd be nice sort of this weekend to sort of see what we can do and stuff. Sam and Colby, I was with them because they use the mausoleum as well on top of the hill, which we have to monitor when people are in there because it's still a private burial ground. So that part of the investigation that we did do together, and that again was like crazy, absolutely crazy. And I say I did a tour for them. I think we were down there for about 2 hours doing like different bits and bobs and like call outs and stuff. It's, I mean, you know me, I can chat for England. So it's like, there's so many questions I had to ask as well. And it was like full deep dive. But hopefully we are going to be doing another investigation with Sam and Colby very soon. So exclusive. Wow. It may not be at the caves. It may just be me with them at another location.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Very exciting. Never in a million years, if you asked me 3 years ago where I started working there, that I would literally be working with people that I've watched since I was a kid, and or meeting Tim Burton on, it's crazy. There definitely is a bucket list I have of like actors I hope come to the caves, or don't hope, because I don't know how I'd react if they did. And a lot of my colleagues joke, they're like, if this person comes, you die. And it's like, yeah, but I have to be there because I'm there. I don't have a choice. There's definitely sort of ones that you hope do come, but then again, as I said, you don't know how you'd react. But
no,
you always just kind of have that professional face that you just sort of kick in. Same as like if I'm working, if any of you guys you come to investigate, it's obviously I know you guys, it's all happy days, but then it's like you do have that, you click in because you are hosting an event for like 40 odd people, which is you have that sort of mix. But again, that's just all part of the job. It's a lot of fun, but then you do have to remember that you are on the job, but you can't complain. So I guess fun stuff.
So there's one famous story that is associated with the caves, the one that's always told on the TV shows, the local historian shows, and that is of the girl Suki. Yeah, would you like to elaborate better than I can?
So her story is one of my favorites to tell, because not just because of, I say, the notoriety it has, but also I do have a personal connection to this story, which I didn't know until an investigation that we did.
Ooh.
Yeah, so the story of her is Suki, or her full name Susanna, as far as we know. She was a very poor girl born into again, like a farming family.
Yeah.
And West Wickham at the time was like a marketing, farming, agricultural village. And so was most of Buckinghamshire. You think it's, a lot of Greenland. So that's what people did at the time. So she moved into West Wickham as it was one of the most sort of prevalent villages between London and Oxford. So it was sort of a stop-off point for, anyone that was trading in between there. Yeah. And there was a lot of like coaching inns and stuff and, places to rest. And now it's known as the George and Dragon pub in the village. So still standing to this day, and also a great place for an investigation, which I will get onto later on in the story. And she was one of the maids there. She lived in room 12, because it depends on the era, but it's often a lot of the housemaids either lived on the top floor or like at the bottom floor. In this case, they had 3 rooms on the top floor that they lived in. And she was, working one day, and apparently she, she was someone that wanted a lot more for herself. You would think if you were in that much poverty, you'd think, if that was me, or, what if we do nowadays, you think, what if I win the lottery, that sort of thing. And she apparently fell for one of the local lords that was sort of like coming through. And it was said that later on in the day, she actually received a letter underneath her bedroom door. And it sort of said in this letter that this lord had also become infatuated with her and wanted to run away with her back to London, and told her in the letter to meet her at the Hellfire Caves, or West Wickham Caves. So she sort of donned a wedding or white dress, typically most associated with a wedding dress, and she took a lantern with her as well. And she was sort of, took the slow walk, which is, uphill to the caves. She got to, the sort of courtyard sort of entrance, and she didn't find anyone there, but she did hear a voice calling her from within the caves. So again, had a lantern, and you think, again, just by, candlelight, you're walking down the caves, and eventually she came into the banqueting hall, sort of, again, the halfway point, big main room. And she didn't find this lord. She actually found, believed to be 3 of the local village boys down there. And they burst into fits of laughter. And apparently they had actually tricked her and sort of, saw that she was making eyes at this guy, and then, thought really prank her. So she obviously was so angry, and she apparently picked up some rocks and debris off the floor and threw them at the guys. She was so, emotional and full of, anger, that she'd, not that they had tricked her, but also that she'd fell for it as well.
Humiliated her. Yeah.
And they, again, being young lads, again, they thought this was even more funny, so they started picking stuff up and throwing it back at her, until eventually something struck her in the head and that she fell to the floor. Now, the story ends in different ways. Some people believe that they panicked and was like, shit, what have we done? She's on the floor, and just dashed and left. And either she eventually, people who were coming to restore the caves or visit the caves found her body, or some people believe that they actually didn't panic and they sort of took her body back to, back to the Georgian Dragon, or what is the Georgian Dragon to this day. And they explained that she visited the caves and they went down as well, and they found her like that, But the one that I most likely believe, and is the most likely in my opinion, is that she didn't actually die instantly from the wound to her head, but it only knocked her out. And eventually she was extremely concussed, but she did come round, and she managed to sort of crawl and feel her way back to the surface. But when she made it to the top, because, it is quite, it's quite a long walk. It's, physically, I never get used to it. I'm still huffing and puffing when I get to the surface. And I do it every day. But she eventually got to the surface and then collapsed and eventually passed away from exhaustion and this wound to her head. So that is sort of the general story that we hear. And people, there are sightings of her, not just within the caves, but also at the Georgian Dragon, and sort of on the hill as well, that is the West Wickham Hill that the caves are dug into. And a story that I love as well is that my half-brother, his dad actually has seen her. And he still to this day refuses to tell me the story because it scares him that much. The only reason I know this story is because him and my mum have told me. And that he was doing it because he used to know the guy who lived, I believe, on, the house that's sort of off the side of the church.
Yeah.
And so visiting, and then was driving back down, and actually swerved his car and almost went into a tree to get out of the way of this woman. And he was like, shit. So he got out the car and panicked. No one to be seen. And yeah, still to this day, he will not tell. I ask him, I've tried and tried and tried and tried, and he will not tell me the story. So that's really weird. Others, even I've had my own, as I say, experiences and stuff when I was a kid, walking to, the school that I went to. And apparently I was, walking hand in hand with my mum, and I started waving at the the window at the top middle of the George. And my mum's kind of like, what's my kid doing? She's like, who are you waving to? And I'm like, oh, the lady in the window, and I keep waving. I'm like, she's waving back at me. And she was like, what is this kid on? And she's like, describe her to me. And I say, oh, she's got long brown hair and she's all in white. And, I'm like, okay. And then apparently my mom has never moved so quickly. She literally grabbed my hand and stormed down the village, because she's like, what the hell? And she's sort of the one I say, if you ever want to hear a spirit at the caves, or she is often the one, you hear screams, even, I've heard screams, I've heard cries, disembodied voices. She's the one that you will hear. And she is obviously, that sadness that her life was taken from her, but also that anger and, that
the emotion,
humiliation as well.
Yeah.
So again, often when I tell this story, I've told it hundreds, if not thousands of times. If I'm in the caves in the banquet hall telling this story, I will out of nowhere just burst into tears. And it's like, I know I'm theatrical and I'm like, you know, getting into, you know, the action, but it's so weird that I'm literally like completely fine, but my face is streaming with tears. And that's, again, something that I find really weird.
Do you think that's sort of the emotion that you feel from maybe her energy?
I think so. As I've had this, again, it's sort of out of nowhere, and it's, you know, as soon as I get out of there, it's like completely fine, and it's almost, you know, like you've been hypnotized or something. But as I said, I have a personal connection with this story. Okay. And a lot of people believe, and it's sort of like an old wives' tale said at the caves, that you're always, you know, brought there to work for a reason. You know, people that work there have, you know, like a purpose to be there for some reason, and it's you know, you've got to find sort of that purpose, whatever it is. And I did an investigation, God, I can't remember when it was, but it was with Mark, who's a member of Just Paranormal, and then a few
Hello, Mark.
Well, yeah, shout out Mark. I have him to thank for my paranormal journey, bless him. He has done so much for me. And we did sort of investigation of like the churchyard on top of the hill, and then we booked room 12, which was said to be Suki's room in the George and Dragon. And, you know, I've been to the George and Dragon, again, hundreds of times. It's my local pub. I've never actually been up to the rooms before until this point, and it's sort of like you have to go through like a little section to get up there. So I'd never had any reason to. So, you know, we have a drink, and I'm, you know, saying hi to all the, you know, locals and whatnot. And then we go up to this room, and I'm not even joking you. The overwhelming deja vu that I'd got was like something I've never, like almost like someone walked over my grave, and I literally stopped. And Holly, who was with one of my colleagues and good friends who was with us, sort of turned around and was like, "Why? What are you doing?" And I literally was like, I feel like I've been here before. And she was like, "Well, you have." And I'm like, "Well, I've not been." And again, I literally had to call up my mum and confirm. I'm like, "Mum, can you please tell me that I have not been in these rooms ever?" And she's like, "As far as I'm aware, why would you have the need to? We live 2 minutes down the road." And I'm like, my point exactly. And as I was walking up this sort of stairwell, I was sort of describing how I felt that this room should have been, or that at least I remembered it that way. And again, it was literally, I was going like, "Oh no, this, you know, this picture used to be there," and all that sort of thing, because the pictures that were there are actually passed down through the owners, and there's some that have been there for years. And then again, we get up to these rooms, and again, it's like that kind of, Holly to this day is like, "I've never seen you like this," because I was like, you know, running my hands along the walls and sort of like, you know, creaking on different floorboards like they weren't supposed to creak that way. And again, it's that I barely remember any of this night. I only know it because bloody Mark was like voice recording the whole bloody night. So it's how I know that there's some of these stuff that I said. And again, we get into this room, and there's like 6 mirrors on the walls, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm good. I'm okay. I am so superstitious, and I'm like, let's not have. There's literally all throughout this room, mirrors again facing each other, which is said to create portals and stuff.
Yeah.
And even like one that's like opposite the toilet, like on the door, and I'm like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
Hey-ho. And again, I'm like, no, the bed should be this way, and I was sort of saying that, you know, the wallpaper, how it used to be. And one of my ex-colleagues, Karen, she was like...
Sorry, can I just stop you a minute? Have you got anything reflective in your bedroom or wherever you are? Because there's a white orb just went down to the right of your face. It went like this. As you're talking about that. That is... Yeah, that side. Yeah.
These like ceramic like pots, but...
No, it was on the back wall, just like here, and it went down like this.
No, that is the only thing is my TV, which is off, and then my light, which is here. But yeah, because I'm so superstitious, I have no mirrors in my room, and the only mirror I have is my hand mirror, which is shaped like a meat cleaver, because you know, there.
Why not?
But that is appropriate. Ta-da! But that is down here on my shelves. But yeah.
Oh wow, that was very strange. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Carry on. Please.
I have suspicions because there is weird stuff that happens to me all the time, and it's quite not unnerving, but anyway, I'll get there. And again, I was sort of explaining how this was, and Karen actually she's like pulled Mark aside because she was like, oh my god, this, and she'd said like this, she'd had this almost like this vision, this premonition days before, and she had again sort of like wrote it all down of what had happened and sort of told Mark what it was. And then you know what Mark's like, he's like, you know, he like likes to puppeteer you on an investigation, so he's like, well, I go and sit down, and you know, like I sit myself in front of, it was a mirror on the front of like a closet, and I like cross my legs and stuff, and I do this like, when I'm on investigation, I sort of do this little like calming thing, or you know, if I'm sort of getting vibes, I sort of do this thing. And I was sat and I was just like kind of breathing and like looking at myself into this mirror, and then my memory goes completely blank. Like I genuinely, for this next like 15 minutes, it literally was like I passed out. So apparently, and this is all on audio record as well, which is incredible. That's the only, again, I hear that and it makes my hair stand up on end, because I don't remember saying any, you know, like swear on my mum's life, I don't remember saying any of it. And like, so we were, you know, I literally apparently like let my head up, and then I was, you know, looking at my arms and sort of touching my tattoos like they weren't supposed to be there almost. And then I started looking around and asking, you know, who people were and what was going on. And then you can tell everyone's a bit like, well, what are you up to, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Mark starts asking questions to me and about who I am and where, you know, what, you know, my purpose was essentially. And through him asking these questions, we found that Suki had actually used me as a vessel to express information that she wanted to share. And again, sort of past working at the caves, she was always a spirit that I had believed that I'd seen. You know, you again look down a corridor and you see what, and you know, again, but you don't know light or sort of things. But again, it was always sort of a cliche thing that whenever I was on an investigation, or if ever I, you know, got the chance to go down on an investigation, that almost immediately of me walking in the room, they were able to contact her and stuff like that. It was really weird. Cliches, coincidences, that sort of thing. Or if I was working at paranormal, people were able to, you know, pick up on her more. And it was stuff like that. So again, this is apparently something that Mark wanted to investigate. So he was asking me questions and say Suki was using me as a vessel to pass information over. And that she wanted people to know that my spirit, whatever my life energy, was actually someone she knew in a past life. And in this past life, that whatever my name was Susanna, and I was also one of the maids that worked at the coaching inn, and apparently I was the only person that knew where she was going the night she died.
See, I thought you were going to say I was Suki in a past life. No. Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, and I was very like, when eventually, you know, and then apparently I got really, or whatever, she got really, really, really emotional, and then they were literally cuts in my hand of where I was clenching my fingers, you know, to my hand so hard, and I was bleeding afterwards. I sort of came round, and then eventually, again, a couple minutes later, I'm literally like, again, back to me. I'm like, what is going on? Why am I crying? I was literally apparently like gripping onto Mark next to me. I'm like, why are you next to me? Why is everyone around me? And Mark's like, you need to listen to this.
Yeah.
And again, that was something I was kind of like, surely I was just like tripping or something. Someone spiked my drink or, you know, whatever. But it was crazy because I'm literally hearing this back and I'm like, I swear on my life, I genuinely do not remember saying any of this. And like, for me, I'm always, even, you know, we get people that come into the caves and ask us to fake evidence and stuff. And it's always like, this place has a reputation for a reason. And I have never and will never fake in anything that happens on an investigation or fake evidence for people, that because no, why would you feel the need to do that?
That's bad. That is.
I absolutely despise people that do that. And there are videos online that do have thousands of views and millions of views, and people, and
you know they're fake.
Name drop, but no. I know that they've done that, and it is what it is. But wow. Again, I'm like, what is going on? So again, I'm like trying to look back through my family tree but again, I have not found anything. And for me, what was really weird confirmation that actually happened, sort of thing, was a few weeks later, we were filming, or we had a paranormal investigation come in, and there was also like a group, GSI Paranormal, that had come on that as well. And I had never heard of them before and never met them. Absolutely, again, lovely, lovely people. And I believe his name's John. I think he's one of the members. He's like a medium, psychic medium.
Again, behind you, straight across the room.
Again, when I'm talking about this story, something weird happens. And he and his sort of son, because they actually, him and his son didn't come on like the little tour that I give because they didn't want to know information. And the rest of the group did, but I don't. Whenever I do my tours before a paranormal, I never give any information to do with anything paranormal. I just always say, this site is, these are the key points to investigate. And I say, sometimes we have screams, sometimes we have growls, yada, yada, yada. But I'd never tell like the stories, essentially. And then his son comes in and goes, would you mind coming down with us and they were recording, sort of, they do a series on Paraflix. And I was sure, yeah, what? And he's like, we think that you have a connection to this place. And immediately I'm like, sorry, because at this point, the only people that knew what had happened on that investigation was myself, Holly, Mark, Karen, and our friend Alex, who was on that investigation. And then people that, or like I told my mum, that kind of like, there was no way in hell on earth these random people knew. So immediately I was like, I'm sorry. Again, this is all on video on their, I believe, In Search Of is the series that they did or are still doing. And he was sat like on one of the sort of spires, not spires, the alcoves in the banqueting hall. And I'm sort of stood next to him, and they were like, he's gonna tell this story of why he thinks you're connected, and you're only to respond with yes or no, nothing else. And I'm like, okay, and literally, he then goes and tells this exact story of what had happened to Suki, Susanna, and my connection with it. And literally, you can see me on this video, like, literally, like, jaw on the floor in shock. And at one point, I'm like, how do you know this? I was so, and I literally called Mark and was like, do you know these people? Have you told them? And he's like, no. So yeah, that was, again, like, I love how it's just on video. Literally, you can see me like in shock of, trying not to react to, confirm anything from him so he can still, do his medium thing. But like, that is insane. And it's, again, he was like, said to me, like, you found your purpose, or, that reason to work there is sort of to be someone that's there for her. And I was like, what the fuck? And it still, to this, it literally gives me chills telling this story, because it's something I don't quite still believe myself. And it's, I'm all, it's always like, do you believe what happens after you die? But it's almost given me a sense of like peace, almost, that I guess that she finds comfort in me or in my energy or whatever. And again, still to this day on investigations, like, because people know this story now, people will ask me to come down, and more than 9 times out of 10, as soon as I go down there, either activity picks up or they are able to contact her. And I'm like, what is my little sphere of energy that just, it's insane. And yeah, that the fact that he literally was able to spout off every single information about that was just like, that
maybe you obviously make her feel safe. And I do believe very much so that we find our eventually we find the right place that we need to be in life. And yours is obviously, you've done other things, but the fact that you lived there in the first place, is that a coincidence? Exactly. Is it a coincidence that your family were there and you were born there? Is, who knows? But obviously the steps that have happened to bring you to this very day where you are working,
which is, it's incredible. And again, that's something I'd love to relive, those two like investigation moments again, just to see it. And for me, it's just kind of, you don't really believe, it's so mind-boggling that it's like, that is something that happened. And even again, I've had other people that have, come in and said, or they get like equipment that will say my name or stuff like that, but not even like my full name with my, you know, Willow Victoria Randall. And I'm like, that's like, how does that do that? It's just, it freaks me out. And there was one investigation they come and did in the cafe, and they had like a spirit box sat in the middle, and again they were sort of going around, and I was sat out back because I was like just doing paperwork or whatnot, and then I really wanted to drink, so I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm coming into the fridge. And as soon as I walked out, it went Willow 13, and I just like that like a couple of days ago got my tattoo of my 13, and I was like,
wow.
What? And everyone turned to me and went, what? And I was like, no.
You're going now.
It's stuff like that happens, and you're like, I don't know what to do. And that's why I found sort of this passion of doing investigations. Like, I love to see like the little coincidences and little like things that are almost too good to be true. Like when we went to the old Nick the other week, I was sat in one of the cells on my own, and I had, you know, like little equipment around me. And literally that was the Saturday. And on the Thursday, a few days ago, I'd lost one of my dogs. He passed away. So I was very like, okay, brave face. And I'm like, I was like, I swear to God, if someone's like, has anyone lost a dog recently? I'm like, shh, fuck up. Like, I'm not in the mood. And I was sat in the cell on my own. And then I'm like, you know, just asking it questions and whatnot, wasn't really getting much. And then it just goes dog. And I'm like, and I was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. I was getting really angry. And this, again, 3 times in a row goes, yes, yes, yes. And I literally was like, nope. And I walked out the room, and I went and was like, to D, I was like, I can't.
How?
Calm me down, bless her, because I was in such like a, what the fuck, like, state of mind. And that was, again, something that was a bit like, I'm good. I don't want to mess with it. I'm okay. And that was like a really weird moment, which again was kind of comforting now that you look back on it. But in the moment, I'm just like, nah, I'm like a Scooby-Doo sort of like, I've just seen the monster, and I'm like, I'm okay. That was crazy.
The theory would be not the fact that your dog is there, but the spirit knows about the passing of your dog. And it's like either trying to comfort you or just to say, look, I know these things. I am real. But,
that was kind of a bit like, oh, okay. And obviously the night went on, and we had some even weirder stuff happen.
In that theatre. Yeah, that was very, very interesting and very... Hellfire Cave-ish stuff.
My reputation follows me wherever I go.
It was very interesting, yes.
Yeah, but even like going back to sort of this connection that I have with her, and so Holly, my colleague, again, I've mentioned her many times. She's my colleague, and she is a complete non-believer. She says she believes in me and what I do and what I've see and hear. Because I have no reason to even sort of when people say about like the videos that I've done and stuff, and they go, oh well, surely that was what you did, and I'm like, I have not earned a single penny from any of these podcast videos, whatever I've done. I do it because I love it.
Yeah.
And I have not that I would if I got paid anyway, but I don't have any incentive to, I don't make money off anything. It's just something that I love and I'm interested in. Yeah. And so she says that it was one time me and her were doing cave check together at the end of the day because we could. And I stopped at one point and she went, Willow, I went, what? She's like, your hair's moving. And apparently my hair was a lot longer and I had it like tied up in a ponytail. Yeah. And apparently I stopped, but my hair was still like swinging like a clock handle.
Yeah. And
I was like, okay. And apparently still sometimes like if we're together, she's like, your hair's moving, by the way. And I'm like, I know, I can feel it. And it's sometimes like it feels like someone's playing with the back of my hair. And I do have that on investigations sometimes, that I will like if I feel myself getting really worked up or really emotional, without a doubt, this feeling of something or someone playing with my hair, and I'm like, I kind of feel that's a bit of a comfort from Suki.
Hello.
You're okay, and I'm like, thanks, you're with me. And again, like you said, that these orbs around me, it's like I get really bad deja vu, and I've had dreams and stuff where I think, again, it's that realm of sleep and awake, so you don't know if it's real. But I've woken up and sometimes I think I've seen a silhouette standing at the end of my bed of that, and I'm like, well, and whatever. But again, you can't confirm if that's
no.
But it's stuff like that, and again, I've had really weird things. Like there was one time I had a friend of mine around, and I was telling her all these stories, and we got into the story of Suki. And then, I'm not even joking you, as I was telling the story, a white feather just came in and landed in the middle of my lap. And I'm like, I can't explain it. So yeah, that's probably my like mic drop sort of moment. Things.
Finished.
Like, that's my bit.
I'm out.
That is something that I don't really like outwardly, portray and sort of go, yeah, hi, this is my story sort of thing. But it's when you have people that do come up on investigation and say that, either ask me to go down because they found this sort of thing, or do get stuff like that, it's incredible.
So have you ever been in the caves and you've been really scared and you had to leave?
Oh, literally, it happens. There are some times where I go on cave check and I have to call my colleagues because I'm genuinely like terrified. Yeah. And like I say to them, like, I just have to call you, and I'm going to call you as I'm walking up, and I'm going to keep talking, and just like they know they don't have to say anything. I just need that reassurance of someone is on the end of the phone.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Like sometimes you go down there and it's just it's walls, whatever. Like like yesterday, you're down shooting, you're covered in blood doing Halloween photo shoots, and your mind doesn't even go there. But there are some times that I'm down there, whether it's on like a tour and I have to just ignore it and be professional, but you're with 20 other people. Or you're on your own, and it genuinely feels like Clapham Junction in your head. Like you feel like every little thing you hear is something, or you're constantly like looking around corners, or you're on edge, or it's just like that, almost like that panic sets in.
Yeah.
And it literally, some days it's fine, sometimes it's not. Like it's weird, and you do have sometimes when I was recording the podcast with Tom Horton, we were down in the Inner Temple. It was myself, Tom, his producer, and the sound engineer. Yeah. And I was sort of stood with my back to like the doorway of it, and they were all spouting off stuff. And I sort of look behind me, and I'm like just a second, because I swear I can hear people above, like, and I just go to like to say sorry, we're recording sort of thing.
Yeah.
No one there. And then I come back in, and I'm just kind of like, okay, that's weird. And then the producer, she was like, there's no one there. And I'm like, no, did you hear it? She's like, you're lying to me. And I'm like, you can go and check. She's like, there's people up there. So she left and went out, and Tom's like, again, like sort of clocked on what was happening. He's like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I heard people and this and that. And she's gone, and she came back, I'm not even joking, she was like white as a sheet, and she's like, there's no one there. And I'm like, yeah.
Welcome to the Hellfire Caves.
And that was like, again, something that's, again, like, fortunately on audio. That's, again, like little weird stuff does like still just happen. And again, sometimes it's just, you put it down to like your mind playing tricks on you, or even could be lack of oxygen. Like if you're down there huffing and puffing on a hot day, or you've got to get down there quickly to sort something out, you have to put it down to those things. But there are other times where it's just too good to be true, essentially.
What's the weirdest thing that has happened to a guest that's been in there? Anything stands out? Anything crazy? Anything, oh my god, let's call the ambulance? Anything? I
mean, I had my hair yanked against a wall once, and I literally had like a gash in the back of my head, and I had to go get stitches in the back of my head, and my mum doesn't know that, so just broadcasting that to the world.
Don't watch, Mum.
Yeah.
Don't tell her.
She'll watch what I show her. So it's all good. But that's literally like, again, when my hair was a lot longer, I was still in the banqueting hall, and it was actually on one of Holly's first tours, and I was sort of just, watching sort of bigger chaperone, making sure she got all the information right.
Yeah.
And again, sort of my hair, and I was like, did I just slip or something? And it was like, no. And then again, I'm like, I'm leaving, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go real quick. And that was really weird.
I bet that freaked her out.
Yeah.
So, that was my god, what am I doing here?
Yeah, bless her. She's like, I've done something. I'm like, you're fine. I was just like, I'm just gonna send someone else down, and I'm gonna get this sorted. That was weird for me. But I mean, we get like people that come up with like scratches in their arms. I mean, it's happened to me as well. Like people have come up with handprints in their clothes in chalk, whether or not they've done that to themselves. But I've had that, and that was, you know, again, reason to decorate myself in handprints, you know, for different gigs, I guess. But it's people. A lot of the time, I say though to people that investigate, it's more for me, more feeling than equipment. It's what.
No joke, it looked like a feather just flew right in front of you. I hope this is being picked up on camera, because I can only see what's on the camera in where you are.
Not that there's not one on me.
It came from above your left shoulder and came straight across, and it looked like a white feather.
I'm just going to move out of the way. There's not, unless it's falling behind my chair, there's genuinely not.
Yeah, but why would there be a feather in there unless you've got a bird?
Yeah.
This is weird. This is weird.
Sorry.
This is cool.
I'll let you know if I find one. But I mean, I'm black and there's nothing on me, so.
Wow.
Into what I bring. Weird things happen whenever I'm anywhere, so I just kind of accept it at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, that really like throw me out of whack. Yeah, I mean, people, you know, we get people that, you know, you're average, you know, you get voices and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's not anything that immediately stands out, you know, that someone's had like a pentagram carved into them or something like that.
Well, no one's fainted or had a heart attack or like fallen over.
Again, bringing our good friend Mark into the story again. I'm not even joking you, on 2 occasions I have had to literally run down and drag him out of the caves, as he was just not there. And this was on an investigation with GPS, and we were watching the cameras, and he has these specific shoes that he wears that always reflect on the lights of the caves, so we always just like send him pictures of just his shiny shoes. We get so bored that this is what we do. We like go, oh, they got shiny clothes on. Honestly, it's what we do. We're really weird. And he like left the banqueting hall up to the corridor just above it, which is called like the children's alcove. And then he sort of stumbles a bit, and I'm like, oh, is he just, you know, just him being, you know what, he's like just stumbling around. And then he stops and like pushes himself against the wall and like lets himself fall to the ground. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I literally like grabbed a torch and like legged it, because I'm like, he's not one to like, you know, mess around with that. And obviously he's had like health issues before, so I'm like immediately just set into panic. And I'm like sprinting, and Barry's like, everything all right? And I'm like, yeah, bye. And I'm like just sprinting down, like, and I get to him and he's like on his own, and I like, and literally I'm like clicking in his face, like clapping in front of his eye, and he's not blinking. And I'm like thinking, is he having like a stroke? What is going on? Like, and I literally just like panicked, and he was like murmuring, mumbling, and I was again like, what is? So eventually I literally was like, can you stand? And like basically like had him like around, like arm around my shoulder, and was like using all of my force to drag him out of the caves. And literally I like sat him on one of the courtyard like benches, and he like eventually like laid down on like the seat of this bench and like got him some water, and it literally took him like 5 minutes or so to like get round. And obviously like the first time it happened, we were like, maybe it was some kind of like medical episode, something like that. But he was literally like he literally looked through me. It was terrifying. And then literally the investigation after he kept, like the next time he came, the same thing happened again in the exact same location. And that was again like, because you know him, he'll like get cocky and take off his protection and all this and that. And it's like, oh, let's not do that here, especially since this has happened, you know, once before. And then again, second time it happened. So that, I completely forgot about that actually. That's something that was really weird. That again, when it's someone you know, it does like quite, and any investigation that, you know, when you see people have like a funny turn, it does throw you a bit, because it's, you know, people you know and you care about. Yeah,
and you also know how they act normally, and it's definitely out of character.
Yeah, and that's something that does, I mean, to this day, it's still like, you know, a bit like, you know, is it evidence? Is it not? You know, it's that kind of, you know, what's going on. So that was really weird. I mean, it's still something we joke about, now, and it's like, if ever he goes to take his, like, bracelets off, I'm like, no, I'm not dragging you out of this location, no way around, like, that sort of thing, so that was quite weird. And we've had people that have literally, like, come up and have, like, been sick and stuff like that, but again, that sometimes you can put down to lack of oxygen and, like, maybe them just getting worked up or stuff, but again, it is weird. You're not exactly, I can't say I've ever been to a location and then been sick there, but you never know. There's always a first for everything, so maybe next time. But it's definitely, I always say, as I said, more feeling than equipment. There's some places you go that have been investigated, thousands of times, and sometimes I like to just think that we're the equipment, essentially, and like what things can happen to us, and that for me is something that I more like to go to my natural instincts rather than sit with equipment and stuff like that. And I always do say to people, and people do say, like, they come up and go, yeah, when you actually sit in there and you feel even like just the vibes of where you are, it's different to any other location I've experienced.
You make the connection, don't you? I think
completely. And it's even like in certain locations, for me anyway, like when I'm in like the inner temple, I hate it in there. I cannot stand to be in there longer than like I have to be. Like on tours, I'm literally like really on edge and trying to get through all the information as quick as possible, because I'm like, I'm good.
Tick, 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 tick. See you later.
I'm like, bye. And then they go, what about this? And I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell you that. I totally just didn't want to get out there. But then like my favorite place in the banqueting hall is my favorite place to investigate. I find it really tranquil in there. Like I literally could sit in there for hours on end and get
probably because it's quite large and it's not claustrophobic, and you can see around,
and it's you can hear people that are coming from, because it's quite such a large room. But yeah, it's unlike any other location I've ever been to.
So what would be your bucket list location now that you started doing paranormal stuff? God. Where would you like to go? Anywhere in the world?
Oh my gosh. Oh, why have you done this to me? Oh my gosh. The first one that does spring to mind is the Villisca Axe Murder House. That's the first one that skips to my mind. There's so many investigations that I've seen there, and it's just like some like just weird stuff's happened, and I'm like, I want to go there, and sort of like that. I don't know why that's the first one that springs to mind. In the UK, I mean, obviously, like I'd love to visit the Hellfire Club in Dublin. That's like number one, because it'd be interesting to see if it was similar things that get picked up in the caves that get picked up.
That would be a good experiment to do, really. I think
sort of even I mean, if people want to do sort of a double whammy, want to do the caves and then Dublin, I am more than happy to offer my services and come with you selfishly. But it's that sort of thing. I don't know. In the UK, there's so many. I mean, everyone sort of says about like the ramming and stuff like that, but I'm like, it's been done so much. Like, I'm sure I'll get to it at some point, but I'm like, I like the places that aren't necessarily so famous and so popular, because I feel sometimes maybe they're just like less like untouched sort of stuff, or that there's sometimes I feel when you go to places that have had so many investigations done, it does sometimes affect the energy that's there, because there's so many people passing through, and it's how many people that try and cleanse it or try and do the opposite and do like rituals or open portals and stuff like that. It's, you don't know what's happened there, but oh my god, I'm just trying to list everything that I mean, obviously like again sort of like the Conjuring House, you'd love to do big bucks. If I had the money, trust me, I'd be going tomorrow. In the UK, I did see Emily. She investigated. She went to like this mannequin like forest or something the other day.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that. Yeah,
live overnight there, and that was like, I'm like, that's just cool. Like selfishly, I can't remember what it was called for the life of me. I just thought that looked really cool.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff online about that. I've never heard of the place before, and it's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's quite like me. I'm like, it's just kind of weird and so freaky, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Again, if it was, I don't know if you've ever done. I think I always pronounce it wrong, but is it Smithic Baths? That was one.
Smithic Baths, yeah.
That was my first investigation I ever did that wasn't at the cave, and that was like. That was not. Again, it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not being used as a site anymore or anything, which is unfortunate because that was.
No, it's closed now.
Which is that was for me really weird. That was a really good night. But yeah, I'm sure we'll finish and then I'll go. Oh, there's like that.
Oh, this place, yeah.
But Villisca's the first place that just skipped to mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is across the ocean though, so maybe one day.
That's a nice trip.
Yeah. Well, where are you going? I'm just going to an axe murder house. What about you? Have you been to your bucket place, or are you bucket list place, or?
I've been to many on my bucket list. The Enfield House is where I want to go to, because you can't go there, and no one's probably ever going to go there unless someone buys it, like they did at East Drive, and then start renting it out.
I've never been before, but that's something.
No, I want to go there just to stand outside the house and take a photo.
Yeah, just like, I've done it. People that stay overnight, I'm like, have fun. I'll get another 20 minutes away. I'm all good. Yeah. But yeah, East Drive's one as well. That's something. I mean, again, so many people have been there, but I'm kind of like, I just want to do it.
I think, for me personally, I don't personally think it's that good, but other people have had amazing nights there. Yeah. So it's each to their own, and we all find.
That some people.
It is, yeah.
There's some days at the caves that people go down there and who have been there loads of times before, and sometimes it's absolutely dead, and that's just you have to accept as a paranormal investigator that there's some nights that you will get absolutely nothing. Some nights, obviously, you get maybe nothing at the start, or it picks up, or it ebbs and flows, and then sometimes you get those, like I say, like those golden nugget investigations that just everything seems to be happening. But that's just something you have to accept, sort of being in the field, I guess, essentially.
Right, so I could talk to you all night. You've got so many stories. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Would you like to share your socials or anything to do with the caves? I mean,
the caves, always, we are doing so many events. Obviously, most notably is our Halloween Fright Nights, which tickets will be releasing very, very soon. This year, we are naming it the Toymaker's Tunnels of Torment. So it's the story of this famed toy maker who eventually went insane through trying to recreate the soul of his lost child within some toys.
Nice.
In the process. So lots of dolls, lots of puppets running around. So it's a full-on, complete fright night in the evenings. We do have one in the daytime called a spooky walk, which is less screaming in your face, rather just being ominous, and sort of you get to walk around, see all the decorations, and there are actors about. And then we do have our slightly fright nights in the day, which are for your little ones. It's 3. They're not the same actors that are in the evening. They're different characters. Well, the same people, myself and other people, but different characters that will be there to give you quests and sort of adventures to go on around the caves with a little bit of a Halloween twist. So tickets for that will be going out very, very soon. And if people are wanting to be scare actors, we are always looking for actors. So my social media is all willowr.x. My surname's Randall, so willowr.x is all my social medias, or Willow Randall. But yeah, please feel free to get in contact if you guys have any stories or anything to share about the caves, because I'm always wanting to learn. But thank you so much, Miki, for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been amazing.
I know I can talk a lot, so.
Thank you, Willow. Awesome.
Thank you.
Wow, guys, there you go. What an amazing episode. What an awesome lady Willow is. She's got so many stories. The connection with Suki. I mean, I got goosebumps just thinking about that story. But yeah, please, if you can, subscribe to the Ghostoul Podcast YouTube channel. I need more subs. We need to bring it up. Get the algorithm going. Follow the Instagram page. And do you know what I'm doing now? I'm going to go watch Willow's episode of Sam and Colby. See you in a bit.